So I want to circle back to where I began, which is your conversion or your evolution through Christianity, Catholicism. How did that happen?
Well, there's two beautiful things. One is to know that there is far too many stars in the sky that are necessary for the universe to continue. There seems to be, and there's far too much spermatozoa and flowers for flowers to continue, and they don't need to be that beautiful color. There seems to be an exuberance in creation. There's just too much, and there seems to be a celebration, a celestial whoopee, as Alan Watts would say. And that's a really beautiful thing. And
there's too much exuberance in nature. I love that.
And there's definitely a joyfulness to all of it. And it's like, wow, look at that. Sometimes you look up at the clouds and you go like, that's as beautiful as anything that Monet could have ever made.
Yes.
And it's temporary, and everything is temporary. So that's like when you realize that the pyramids are at their half-life, 5,000 years, and in 5,000 years they'll be dust. And I go like, wow. How much more so us? And if you think, if our works, whatever we do, if you think our good works are but dirty rags in the face of the Lord, how much more our pride, our vanity? So that came to me by having children and the incredible beauty and gift that they are, and how they see the world, and that their eyes point out to see everything, and that they know that they're connected to everything, and they have to be taught that there's a separation between them and their mother. This is something that they just naturally, they know they're a part of everything. When the astronauts look back from the moon, if they ever went, they saw one thing.
If they had gone.
If they had gone on the set that they were on, right. Where they were shown a picture of
in Laurel Canyon, I think.
They saw the picture of Earth, and they saw one thing, and we're that one thing. And then at the same time, when this is coming to me, my beautiful children are that I'm having a second chance at, to be the father, to be a better father this time, a more present father, to see the rise of evil in the world, and to be concerned about that, and to know that now is the time to be courageous. Now is the time for people to step up and say injustice, whether it's the current attack on women, whether it's the educational system, not educating kids. I say, take your kids out of college right now. Now is not the time to let your kids go. How much do you have to hate your kids to send them to Harvard undergrad right now?
I agree completely.
The business schools are great. They're still going good. They're all conservative too, 80%. But so you see a rise in evil, and you have to know that like, this is happening. And I've been very blessed that I got to meet some people who educated me about, evil. And in a meeting, Dr. M. Scott Peck, when I was young man, and reading his books about the first self-help book was his. It was The Road Less Traveled. And it was a book about how to be a better person, how to grow as a human being spiritually, and not take the easy road of just repetitive behavior or just not learning, not growing, but take the harder road, becoming a better person, learning, loving, being tolerant, being forgiving, being patient, which is, you can easily see how we transitioned into Christianity, because he was a Christian without saying. He was just already had the followings of Jesus in his heart. And so it was a natural opening. And he had a very interesting story about him, about how he was the doctor in the murder of the massacre of My Lai, which is the Vietnam massacre in the late 60s. And he was assigned as a psychologist by the Army, the U.S. Army, to kind of figure out the psychological makeup of the company baker who did the massacre. And so he did. And it was very interesting, his findings. One thing is, the only reason what we ever learned about the massacre of My Lai was because the helicopter pilot who witnessed it flying above couldn't live with it anymore. And so a year later to the day, he confessed and just said, well, this is what happened. This is what these people were massacred. And so during the psychological evaluation, which the Army never released, he said that these people were people. It wasn't like these particular company had members in it that had some grievances, and that they had other issues and problems, and some of them maybe had joined the army to avoid this or that, or were in prison or whatever. And then that also was just one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is that they were being in a war that wasn't get as much support back home. So they were going through, and they were getting sniped at by the enemy, sniper fire, and they were just killing their friends, and they weren't able to get the enemy. They weren't able to get them. And they just kept happening. And so by the time they got to a village, they said, where is it? Where is it? Where are they? And the people, and this was something that's interesting because it reflected on my childhood, because Asian people, when they are nervous, when they are frightened, they laugh. That is true when, like, all my relatives, when they are nervous or when they laugh, that's their go-to thing. So when the Vietnamese people who were having guns pointed at them were nervous and afraid, they laughed. And these people went ballistic at that point and just murdered the entire village, just murdered them all, killed them all. And so he did this and handed it in, and the army never released it. So moving further, he wrote a book about after he became a Christian, and then wrote a book about healing human evil called People of the Lie. And it's a short book, but very good book about evil. And it's important now to identify and to help heal human evil. And it's a fascinating book, but it helps you identify people in your life and people who are capable and who are evil. And evil does exist, and we need to arm ourselves with God, and to arm ourselves with knowledge so we can protect ourselves for what's a rise in evil. And the last chapter of the book, one of the chapters, which is really stunningly awful, was this one kid who was depressed, and he went to go see Dr. M. Scott Peck, and he found out that his brother had killed himself. And he realized this is a really good kid, and he's depressed, obviously, his brother killed. And then he found out that for a birthday present, his parents gave him a gun. And he's like, that was just absolutely stunned. And but it wasn't just that. It was the same gun that his brother killed himself with. So there was a realization, and he talked to the parents and realized these were evil people. And so that potentiality for human evil, we need to recognize and help heal, protect ourselves, protect our families. And the last chapter on it, which is demonic and satanic possession. And it was like, I'm reading this book. It's 3:00 in the morning at this point. I'm starting to freak out by this. And but he postulated this theory. He said, like, the people who seem to be possessed seem to be very angelic people that this entity is trying to overtake. And they're fighting back for it to free themselves. And evil, even evil, it has to succumb to the will and of Jesus Christ and must submit to it. And which the theory that he postulates, well, this is somebody who's fighting back. So therefore, it makes sense that there are people who don't fight back and just accept it and go with that. And that demonic possession becomes complete. And I think we have to know that that's something that exists, is real, human evil, whatever you want to call it. And so what Dr. M. Scott Peck in the bigger picture tried to explain was that, like, obviously science and theology had to split at a certain point to survive, because theology was crushing science.
Yes.
When you have, when Copernicus discovers that the sun is a solar, the beginning of the middle of our solar system, not the earth, and it's not part of the church doctrine, that has to be recanted. Obviously, science had to split. So you had the laws of nature, which is just, they just took the lawmaker out, and they still the laws, just like we have
Yes.
theological laws. So when you have that separation, what Dr. M. Scott Peck tried to do is to bring it back together. So when somebody's like a murderer or somebody's bad, you know, in science, medicine, you call them sick. Theologically, you call them evil. They're one and the same. So in the attempt to cure human evil, I think it makes us, we need to do both and to work together. And I think through bringing people closer to God, bringing our nation, which was founded under God, I think we have a chance to heal our nation, and because there is a rise in evil, and I think we all see it.
So it sounds like you're saying the rise in evil turned you toward God.
Well, I think both bookends. The beauty of it, and my children, and the beauty of seeing what God's gifts are, and there's so many, and also to be. You have to recognize that this, you know, whether it's a cycle or what happens, you know, that there is evil. There seems to be a rise in evil in the world and what's happening. And just like with, you know, in Europe in the 1920s,
yes,
the New York Times called these small group of people a bunch of misfits and nothing will ever come of them, the National Socialists. I think we need to be very careful how we move. And I believe the United States must continue to be the guide and for the world as an example of freedom, not perfect freedom, not a perfect society by any stretch, but a one that aims for equality, that aims to be able to express itself, and free speech is the beacon call for freedom in the world. And nobody's swimming away from America. They're not trying to get out. They're trying to get in for a reason, because this is the greatest experiment in freedom in human history and continues to be. And we must fight and be vigilant. And now's the time for courage to protect it.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. We hope you'll subscribe to it. And by the way, you can hit the little bell on there and get notifications every time we produce a video. We hope you'll do that also.